You're listening to the JD Rucker Show. Let's begin. Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of the JD Rucker Show. I'm your host, JD Rucker, and today we are very proud and very blessed and very pleased to be on Patriot.tv. Big announcement coming. Hopefully, Lord willing, the big announcement is coming this week, but it appears that I am not just going to have my show on the network, that there may be something bigger and better and more awesome in store for both me as well as Patriot TV. So stay tuned for that. It's a crazy weekend, and yes, I do apologize for missing some shows last week. We are in the process of still finishing up negotiations with Patriot, and as a result, I've been playing business dude for like a week. And it's funny because the last show that I did was Dr. Robert Malone's interview that's gotten, I've got apparently, he got a lot of people riled up about that interview. Got Nicole Shanahan out there posting about it. You got a bunch of doctors out there posting about it. People seem to be all about talking about Dr. Robert Malone and the interview that he did here on Patriot TV with yours truly, JD Rucker. So, big weekend. And of course, this weekend we've had, well, I don't know if you knew, we did have some news about Joe Biden, multiple instances of news. We had the news about, confirming that basically he wasn't running the country, and there's no way he could have been running the country because after the Her tapes leaked, well, it was revealed that he couldn't have been running the country. And then, of course, then the follow-up of, oh my gosh, he's got prostate cancer. This is a cover-up. It's oh, look, distraction. Look over here instead of over there. Who cares about who was running the country? The dude's got cancer. You can't talk about it anymore. Yeah. I get it. So big show today. Very excited about this show. Before we get into it, quick shout out to my very good and awesome new sponsors over at Heaven's Harvest. Go to jdrucker.com/food, jdrucker.com/food. Use promo code PATRIOT when you do that. And if you use promo code PATRIOT, you will get a nice discount on top of it. This is an all-American company. It's a Christian company. They sell long-term storage food, and that's it. I know I've talked about other companies in the past that sell maybe long-term storage food plus like water purifiers and solar generators and tents and machetes and whatever. These guys over at Heaven's Harvest at jdrucker.com/food, they just focus on the food, and that's awesome because that's what we need. Okay, I'm not saying we don't need the other things, and you can always go buy other things elsewhere. But when it comes to high quality food, locally sourced, properly freeze dried, maintaining the maximum amount of flavor and consistency and nutrition, you can get that at Heaven's Harvest. Go to jdrucker.com/food to find out what Heaven's Harvest can do for you today. With that said, let's get into the show. Let's talk about Joe Biden, huh? So it appears that Joe Biden has cancer, likely, according to a lot of people, seems to have probably had cancer for a very long time, and yet it was covered up. Now, I had actually posted a Substack over the weekend. My initial response was that maybe he didn't even know. Let's face it, we're talking about Joe Biden. It's very possible that they could do something and diagnose him with this or whatever, and he might not even be aware. Now, I was corrected. Look, when I'm wrong, I will be the first to admit that I'm wrong. And I think I was wrong with that Substack. I almost wish I could pull it back, but I stand by at least my initial response. That was before watching a certain video that seems to indicate that at least as recently as 2022, maybe even further back than that, Joe Biden himself was aware that he had cancer.
And because it was a 4-lane highway that was accessible, my mother drove us, and rather than us be able to walk. And guess what? The first frost, you knew what was happening. You had to put on your windshield wipers to get literally the oil slick off the window. That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer. And why for the longest time, Delaware had the highest cancer rate in the nation.
Of course, at the time, they were all saying, the White House and legacy media, oh, it was just a gaffe. It was just Joe being Joe. He doesn't have cancer. Don't worry. It was his stutter. That's what it was. He stuttered out the word cancer, and now he doesn't have cancer. Nothing to see here. Of course, now in context, that statement makes a lot more sense. He apparently knew. That's why, again, I wish I could retract my Substack, which which suggested that maybe he didn't know. So apparently he did. All right, fair enough. What else did we know? When, the real question now becomes, when did he know? When did they know? When did everybody know? I mean, is it possible that he knew even before he ran? Well, apparently yes. According to many doctors are coming out and saying, look, for it to get to this stage, spreading to the bones and being at such a high level, they're saying it's aggressive, but that's cover-up wording for, hey, we've known about it for a while, we just didn't tell anybody. Are we talking, well, at least 2 years, 3 years now? It's been 3 years since Joe Biden acknowledged that he had cancer. So we know it's at least 3 years old. Some doctors are saying 5. I've heard 7. I've heard some say as many as 10 years. 10 years for prostate cancer to get to this level. I forgot his name. I got to look it up now. Great. Dr. David Schusterman. There we go. Dr. David Schusterman went on with News Nation over the weekend and said, look, none of this makes any sense. And he was to be clear, I mean, he wasn't trying to be out there conspiracy theory. Oh, Joe's known about it forever. And the doctor, I mean, he's being pretty milquetoast about it, saying, oh, yeah, I don't know. It just sort of seems crazy. It is crazy. And I would argue that he did, for sure, know about it long before we're being told.
It's very unlikely that someone could get annual checkups and not notice a PSA elevation over the past, but this is what I typically would see in a VA hospital, where a patient hasn't had medical attention in 10 years, presents to an emergency room with bone pain, and then they find that it's metastatic prostate cancer. But in the modern age of medicine, especially the fact that he was a former president, he had intensive state-of-the-art, care where we can see prostate cancer, 10 years in the past. So this is, it's very unusual to hear that someone has prostate cancer where they're annually being followed up. And the fact that we just find it at a Gleason 9 is just pretty much unheard of in this day and age of medicine. Even in the, even in the inner city populations, we wouldn't see it. So
you're saying even in a medically neglected population, it would be surprising to have a surprise diagnosis with a Gleason score of 9. So you're saying that certainly as he was serving in the Oval Office, you believe that he knew that he had prostate cancer, and even potentially as he was running in 2020 before he assumed office?
Well, most likely he had prostate cancer for a long time, and aggressive prostate cancer such as this at age 80 grows over a long period of time. I mean, usually it takes from the first diagnosis of prostate cancer to spread would take 5 to 10 years, even in the most aggressive form. It's just, to me, it seems very surprising that the first diagnosis would be a metastatic diagnosis, especially Gleason 9 cancer, without, having his PSA history. I mean, I would like him to get to release the PSA history right now to see what it was. I mean, I'm talking from an area of kind of not as much information as I would like to have.
And it is not it is not standard. We were looking for a PSA score to be released as part of these public presidential health reports. We didn't get Trump's most recently either. I want to ask very quickly, so much has been made of his apparent cognitive decline. Is there a possibility that either the cancer itself or any treatments he was undergoing in secret could affect cognitive function of a person?
Yeah, absolutely. Because what happens is when prostate cancer becomes, like, say you get treated for prostate cancer and then the prostate cancer recurs, what you would do is you would start someone on a kind of a testosterone blocking hormone such as Lupron, and because Lupron acts to lower your testosterone, it gives you kind of like symptoms of depression, lower energy, fatigue. So there's a lot of things that go with being on Lupron treatment. So Lupron is a class of medicine that just castrates, chemically castrates someone so that the prostate cancer doesn't spread. And so Lupron was likely used in Joe
I understand.
Biden.
So to be very clear, you believe he was silently, secretly battling this for at least 5 years?
Well, I think that's yet to be seen. I mean, it would be very surprising, like I said earlier, for him to have prostate cancer at Gleason 9 spread to bone without, without being neglected medically. So the fact that he was seen medically every year, it's just very surprising. I mean, his PSA must be over 50 at this point,
Okay.
if not a lot more, just because of bone mets. Is a sign that it's very aggressive and spreading to other parts of the body. So I think there's definitely evidence that he probably knew about this for a while.
So that's the report from News Nation. What about the more left-leaning outlets out there? News Nation, for those who aren't aware, if you're not watching it, it's as close to being fair as you can get amongst leftist legacy media. They're not quite as crazy lunatic leftist as CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, NBC. They're to the left of Fox News, but not by much. To be clear, Fox News is, of course, has been lurching to the left for years. So that's News Nation's take. What about anybody on the left? Are they starting to realize that their cons, their lies are being exposed? Apparently so. We're seeing, of course, the Jake Tapper books coming out. We've got all this talk about, I didn't know. They knew. They all knew. We all knew. Everybody knew. The only person who might not have known is Joe Biden, but he probably knew it too. Even old Joe knew. So here's Morning Joe, and here's a doctor. I don't know the doctor's name, but here's a doctor who's basically also coming out and saying, this all seems sort of weird for the diagnosis to come out now.
Going to run for president for another 4 years. Obviously, the PSA exam is not 100% accurate, and I've never met a doctor that doesn't say you needed to do the PSA exam and also have the physical exam as well. I just find it hard to believe that any White House physician wouldn't say, okay, well, what my doctor and what every other doctor says, which is, okay, we've done the PSA test and that's fine, but at least once a year, we need to do a physical exam. Again, if you're just talking about a 78-year-old guy that is not running the free world, that's one thing. But if you're a White House physician and you have any man over 40 years old, are you not going to at least say, hey, once a year, like every other physician says, once a year, we need to do a physical exam and check? Because this is like one of the leading causes, one of the leading sicknesses for men over 40.
Yeah, I mean, Joe, I think 100%. And, did they do a digital rectal exam to assess his prostate? Again, typically that's done in the presence of symptoms. To your point, he's the leader of the free world. Did they do it and not characterize it? It's hard to know. We're speculating here. I would say in an abundance of caution, probably be holistic and comprehensive. That would make sense. It is interesting to note that President Trump's, President Obama's, and President Bush II, in their most recent physicals, in their terms of office, obviously 2025 for President Trump, did comment on their PSA levels. And so they got screened while in office, and they commented on it. It's not easy to access the most recent ones from President Biden. You can read the summary articles. I couldn't access it on the archive site on the White House just before I came on. But according to those that were able to, there is not a report of a PSA test on the most recent physical that was read out for President Biden's last year in office. And so it's to say what was done, what was not done. You and I would be speculating, but the other three most recent occupants of the White House had it drawn, and it was reported out in the case of President.
So, of course, the question becomes why? Why is it all coming out now, right? And I think most of us know the reason for that. If you watch any conservative or alternative media, chances are you've already heard the theory, and I would say a very, very good theory, that this is an attempt to cover up for the recent revelations. To call them revelations is idiotic. The recent acknowledgments by legacy media that they definitely were covering up for Joe Biden's mental acuity issues, his dementia. They were trying to pretend like he was fine, because that was politically expedient for them to do so. Now we're starting to hear that oh, wait, no, a lot of us knew, and in reality, they all knew. But the question is, why do we bring this up now? Is it to protect Joe Biden? And I would say no. It has really nothing to do with Joe Biden himself. I'll explain that. But let's first, here's Laura Ingraham and guest Jason Chaffetz explaining, talking. Keep in mind, this is a clip from before the announcement of Joe Biden's prostate cancer diagnosis. So this, I think, touches on the direction that we need to go.
Okay, watching this, Jason, you know who I want to talk to? I want to talk to Jeffrey Zients. I want to talk to Jake Sullivan. I want to talk to the press secretaries. I want to talk to all the senators who met with Biden, because all of them knew this and all of them lied about it.
Yeah.
It's staggering to watch this. Yeah. I find it absolutely beyond.
It's so selfish and so self-absorbed. This is the United States of America. There's a potential for a nuclear war at a moment's notice. We got Russians and Chinese coming after us. This guy can't figure out when his own son passed away, when Donald Trump was elected. And there are people that are culpable. And it starts, I think, with Jill Biden, because she is at the top of the food chain. She is seeing that. It also goes to the White House counsel's office. They have a legal and fiduciary duty to this country that goes well beyond making sure that they can fill in the blanks as to when people passed away. Ed Siskel and Rachel Cotton, these should be common. These are names within the White House. They were there filling in the blanks for the president. They don't feel like there's a duty to tell the attorney general, to tell the cabinet, to tell the senior leaders, the gang of 8, what's really going on here. That is totally selfish, and I think it's just so un-American. We really have to get to the bottom of all those that are culpable.
Yeah. Well, it isn't often that I agree with Jason Chaffetz. His brand of conservatism is a bit different from mine, but hey, in this case, he's absolutely correct. There are a lot of people behind the scenes who are using Joe Biden as a mask. They were running the country, and we need to find out who. And again, this is where the whole prostate cancer diagnosis, this is where that comes in. This is a distraction. That's all it is. It's a distraction. They unleashed it at the right time, right after her tapes are coming out, right when Jake Tapper's doing his thing and other people in media are pointing fingers and they're all trying to blame somebody else, and they're going to eventually start pointing their fingers in the wrong directions. Those wrong directions, I mean, being the people who were actually disseminating the idea that Joe Biden still had his cognitive abilities intact. The people who were trying to pretend like he was actually running the country. He was a mask. Okay? He was a puppet, and worse than just a puppet, he was a puppet for a ventriloquist, not just puppet masters. He was just saying and doing whatever they wanted him to say or do. And what's worse is that using AutoPen and other means, he was also engaging in leading this nation. Except it wasn't him; it was somebody else, and those people are the ones that have the most to lose. Those are the people that, if exposed, they can do some serious jail time, because we are talking about usurping Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution. We're talking about something that could arguably be pointed to as treason. And yeah, is it Jill Biden? Yeah, I think so. Is it Hunter Biden? For sure. Is it Barack Obama? Almost certainly. Susan Rice? His aides, everybody who was a quote-unquote aide for Joe Biden. What about the puppet masters? What about the people that we don't know about? The people the nameless, faceless handlers on behalf of the globalist elite cabal. All of those people, or at least most of them, stand a lot to lose if the Trump administration, the Department of Justice, were to investigate this beyond, Joe's got dementia. Okay, well then, who was running the country? If those questions truly start getting asked, if full-fledged investigations begin, and for all I know, they already have. Okay, in this particular case, I don't think we necessarily know. This is a very delicate situation because we are talking about former and possibly present government officials. So if they are doing it and keeping it on the down low, I can respect that. That's why they're coming out with this whatever. You know, it reminds me, this prostate diagnosis coming out now, it reminds me of the Kevin Spacey situation. Kevin Spacey, when he was initially accused by that actor of basically sexually assaulting him when he was a young, teen. What did Kevin Spacey do? Instead of addressing that, denying it or whatever, he decided to come out and say that, made some weird statement about living as a gay man. I think he was hoping that would distract people enough that could be the news, and then he would get rally support from the LGBTQIA plus community. That was the strategy, and of course that strategy didn't work. It backfired big time. He's been struggling to, struggling as far as a rich leftist actor could struggle, I guess, which isn't much, but still, he's out of the limelight. He failed to distract enough, and I'm hopeful that that's the case here. I'm hopeful that, look, Joe Biden, great, he's got prostate cancer. Do we need to investigate that a little bit? Sure, we do need to find out why were the doctors lying. But I'm not worried about prosecuting the doctors. That's great. If you can get that done, awesome. I want to find out why they did it. Who told them to do it? Because I think that will lead us back to who was trying to run the country. Here's what I think happened. Okay, as far as basically the entirety up to the campaign, and we're going to get into crazy conspiracy theory concepts here, so you might want to grab your tinfoil hat. My theory is this: is that they being the global elite cabal, the powers and principalities, the rulers of this world, they loved having Joe Biden there because he didn't push back on anything. He couldn't push back on anything. He wasn't aware of anything. He was a man who was president of the United States of America, and they could do whatever they wanted with him. They could sign any executive order, any legislation, anything, and he wouldn't know. And they loved that. They wanted to keep that going even after the disastrous debate. They were like, oh crap, what are we going to do? And I think, and again, I'm getting into accusations here. These are theories. These are possibilities. But I think that their plan was, well, we got to take, he's obviously not going to be able to win on his merits. So we're going to have to do something crazy. We're going to have to put him up against someone that either he could beat, still unlikely, or if he loses to them, that we could control. I think that person was, should I say it? Yeah, I'll say it. I think that person was Nikki Haley. And I'll get into why, but it actually goes deeper than that. But we're talking about prostate cancer and Joe's dementia and the cover up there. But I want to just real quick go through this theory. So they're like, well, Joe has the debate. Yeah, he's clearly going to lose. We need to get rid of Trump. So I think that they sent an assassin to Butler, Pennsylvania. I do. I think they figured, hey, we can take out Trump, then replace him with Nikki Haley. That way, if assuming that Joe Biden loses at that point, no big deal. We got control of Nikki as well. Seriously. And again, I'm sure I'm going to get some sort of response from the Haley camp. I'm not insinuating that she even knew about it. Okay. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't. Maybe it's all, again, we're speculating here. But I think it's possible. I think it's very possible. I think once Trump's assassination was prevented, praise God for that, well, then they went to plan B. They were like, okay, I guess we got to beat Trump. Let's get, first we got to get Joe out of there, and then we got to get, we got Josh Shapiro, we got Mark Kelly. I like Mark Kelly. Obama likes Mark Kelly a lot. Let's talk to him, maybe even Gretchen. And then they'll look at what Joe just, what, no, we told Joe to just drop out. We didn't tell, he endorsed Kamala? Are you kidding me? Now here's what's funny, why this theory kind of sticks in my head, is that one of the few things that wasn't auto-penned, they've determined it was not auto-penned, was his dropping out and his memo where he's dropping out and endorsing Kamala. That seems to have been closer to the family. I'm not saying Joe made the decision, but it was probably Taco Jill, okay, or Hunter or whoever. It was somebody who was bitter and angry that they would push Joe out now, that they didn't stand behind him. So they thought, all right, well, you guys are going to learn your lesson. We're not going to let you pick who who you think should be in there. We don't want Trump running against Mark Kelly or Josh Shapiro or Gretchen Whitmer or Gavin Newsom or whoever. I'm pretty sure Trump would have beaten any of them. But no, we're gonna throw Kamala Harris. That way you guys can see what hey, careful what you wish for there, buddy. That's what I think happened. And I know, crazy conspiracy theory, no evidence, no proof, just speculation. But I think that speculation is accurate. So now the question becomes, if they are trying to cover up the dimension, not for Joe's sake, but to cover their own butts, to prevent themselves from having to go through, be investigated, be charged, prosecuted, jailed for a long time, to protect themselves and their system, perhaps even a beast system, if you will, to protect themselves, they decided, hey, let's throw out this. We've been keeping prostate cancer in our back pocket for a while. Now's the time. Her tapes drop. Media's turning on us. Throw out the prostate cancer, and hey, we're gonna win. We're gonna move on from this. We can't let that happen. We cannot let that happen. If they want to investigate, the doctors and everything else, who was behind the great, but as long as it leads to who was running the country, and who was protecting the people who were running the country, and who was aware that other people were running the country. This has to be a massive operation. We're not saying, oh, it's just a group of like 8 dudes in some foreign country sending their orders to Joe Biden's aides. No, this would have had to have been a massive operation. Maybe not massive, that might be overkill. It would have had to have been hundreds or thousands of people who were involved, aware, able to coordinate, able to keep up the charade for as long as possible. They had the perfect president. They wanted to maintain that. He was their perfect president because he would do whatever they wanted to, even when he didn't actually do it himself. He was the Milli Vanilli of presidents, just old and white. And if you don't understand that reference, you're probably really young. It is incumbent on us, on you, on me, on Legacy Media, to pressure as much as possible, pressure the Department of Justice to stay laser focused on figuring out who committed massive acts of betrayal at the very least. Figure out what crime you want to call it. I'm not going to say treason because who knows? I don't know what they're going to do. But people were committing wrongdoings against the United States of America, against Article 2 of the Constitution. They were using Joe Biden, and those are the people that need to be busted. Again, anybody who was giving him orders or pretending to be him with AutoPen, President AutoPen needs to be exposed. Anybody who was covering it up, protecting it, pushing it forward, this con of a presidency, and anyone who knew about it and didn't say anything, because there has to be a lot of people who are like on the sidelines, on the periphery, who were they knew exactly what was going on, and they didn't say anything about it because it was their team. And I'm talking specifically in that third camp. It's most likely members of the Democrat Party, even including those on Capitol Hill. There's a lot of people to investigate, and a lot of people to find and to expose and to get rid of. We need to start, so we have to be laser focused. Don't let the prostate cancer distract us from the big prize, the big question that needs to be answered. Who was running the country? Who was helping them to run the country? Who was covering up their running of the country? And who do we arrest first? So it's no secret that I am extraordinarily bullish about President Trump's economic policies. I stand by them. They're very different from the ones that I might have embraced in the past. But I have learned that on the path forward with what he's trying to do, it all makes sense. Is there going to be pain? You betcha. We're going to experience some pain. I actually would have expected we would have experienced more pain already, but we haven't really seen, at least I haven't, seen a whole ton of pain just yet. That doesn't mean it won't come, and I think it will come. But in the long run, and when we're saying long run, we're not talking about decades from now. In the months and years to come, we will start seeing many, many, many benefits from President Trump's economic plan. One area where there will be, I think, tremendous benefits, and I'm not a financial advisor, so don't go off and do what I say just because I say it. I'm not offering financial advice, but I do see that physical precious metals such as gold and silver are going to respond very well to President Trump's policies for three reasons. Number one, I mean, let's face it, he really wants to devalue the U.S. dollar, at least on a temporary basis. He's talked about it many times. It's something that he's been pushing for, and devaluing of the dollar, when it does happen, and it will happen, is going to make physical precious metals, it's going to make their prices skyrocket, again, in my humble opinion. Number two, he wants to lower rates, or he wants the Fed, rather, to lower interest rates. And if and when that happens, we can assume it's going to happen at some point, right? When that happens, that as always, lowering of interest rates has always favored physical precious metals such as gold and silver. And then number three, of course, the idea of breaking us free from the globalist trade network. That doesn't mean that we're not going to be trading globally. We want to trade globally, but we just don't want to continue to be the piggy bank for everybody else. We don't want to be the ones that are getting shafted while every other nation is making money off of our policies. He wants to get to free trade via fair trade. He wants it to be fair. That's all he's asking, and he's going to get it. And as he does with every positive trade deal, there's a very good chance that the economy, in particular, physical precious metals, are going to do extraordinarily well. This is why, when we're looking at, again, not tomorrow, I'm not talking about looking at the spot prices today or yesterday or tomorrow, I'm talking about thinking ahead, thinking, for example, about your retirement. It makes sense. Makes sense to consider. I'm not going to say it makes sense to buy because then I might sound like a financial advisor. No, it makes sense to consider physical precious metals as a portion of your portfolio. Now, for years, I have been working with various gold companies. I have vetted out a total of 34 over the years. It's crazy, right? I've vetted out 34 different companies. And there have been a few that I've recommended in the past, ones that checked off particular boxes. I want a company that works with integrity. I want a company that will actually help people to, I don't know, maybe gain value in their retirement. I know that sounds crazy. If you knew what I knew about the gold industry, you would be shocked at how many companies out there, even companies that are recommended by conservative show hosts, do crazy, stupid, deceitful things, in my humble opinion, to their customers, their clients. But I have now a new company, the first one that has checked off every single box. Every single box. Augusta Precious Metals checks off every box for me. And you can go to jdrgold.com to check them out. jdrgold.com, Augusta Precious Metals, and you will learn, hopefully, you'll learn why I am so appreciative of them. To me, it comes down to three things. Number one, and these are differentiators between them and other gold companies. Number one, their agents, their personnel do not make commission. And to be clear, neither do I. Just for complete transparency, I don't make a penny. If you buy from them, if you don't buy from them, doesn't affect my relationship or my bank account even. But their agents, their sales reps, they don't make commission either. Zero commission. You know what that means? Do you even have any idea how big that is? They are, as far as I know they're the only major physical precious metals company in the gold IRA industry that does not pay commissions. But they might be the only one, period. Even major, minor, middle, I think they could be the only one. And that means that their agents that you're going to talk to are aligned with your goals. When you deal with somebody who's making a commission based upon what they sell you, then they're going to try to sell you whatever's going to make them the most commission. It's human nature. Their goal is to make as much money as possible. Whereas when you work with Augusta Precious Metals, their agents that you work with are wanting you to make as much money as possible. This is a game changer. It's huge. I mean, seriously, there's nothing like it in the industry. Nobody else that I know of goes without paying commissions to their sales reps, agents, whatever they want to call them. And again, for complete transparency, neither do I. I don't make a penny on top of, my sponsorship with them, but I don't make anything extra for them or from them if you were to buy. I'm recommending them for your benefit. Number two, and it's important, number two, as far as the number two reason why I appreciate them, when it comes to physical precious metals, I've talked about it in the past, there are generally humongous spreads. They might have like what's called a loss leader. It's like, oh yeah, our spread is like super low. It's just like this, but they'll have like literally one item that has a low spread. Everything else will have like what, 40, 45, 50% spreads. True story. They have huge spreads on their products, and this is how they're able to make money. This is why they're able to go to the third reason. They being other gold companies, generally speaking, offer free silver or free or bonus silver. Yeah, bonus silver. Oh, $10,000 worth. It's free. We're just crazy. We're stupid. Take advantage of us. And you really think that these companies are still in business by giving away $10,000 in free silver in exchange for what, a $299 processing fee? No, they can do math too. They're actually pretty good at it. And it's a trap. It's in my humble opinion, it's a scam, it's a con. Augusta Precious Metals doesn't insult your intelligence and doesn't get engaged in that trap of free or bonus silver. One of these days, I'm going to explain how that whole system works, because makes me sick. Thankfully, Augusta Precious Metals does not make me sick. You can contact them by going to jdrgold.com, jdrgold.com, and get engaged in a personal web conference, educational. Learn what you need to learn about how they do business versus how other companies do business. Because again, I'm bullish. I think that President Trump's economy is going to make gold and silver perform well, we'll say. Again, repeating for the third time, I'm not a financial advisor, but I do believe in the physical asset, the physical aspect of gold and silver in your depository backing your retirement account. Contact Augusta Precious Metals today. You don't even have to tell them that I sent you. Just say, hey, some random dude says you guys do good business. Why don't you show me how you do it? And they will. Augusta Precious Metals. Go to jdrgold.com today. Other big news over the weekend. It wasn't all just about Joe Biden. There were other things that were happening. There was a fertility clinic that was bombed in California by a very, very evil man. According to the National Pulse, there's a picture of this evil, evil man, now deceased. According to the article, anti-Christian who wanted war against pro-lifers bombs fertility clinic. A man opposed to pro-life values committed what authorities are calling an intentional act of terrorism over the weekend, bombing a reproductive center in California. On Saturday, 25-year-old Guy Edward Bartkus blew up his car outside the American Reproductive Center in Palm Springs, killing himself and injuring 4 others. ARC performs IVF treatments, egg retrievals, and other fertility care. In other words, this is, when people talk about reproductive health, this is reproductive health. Okay, abortion is not reproductive health. Abortion is murder. But hey, that's just me. Police found 2 rifles and ammunition with the explosive vehicle. None of the embryos or other sensitive material was damaged by the blast. My theory, and I'll never be able to confirm this, but my theory is that it blew up prematurely, that he was hoping to do something else, maybe park closer, maybe even get it, where, like in the movies where they drive the car in and they jump out, and the presence of rifles tells me that, right? He was planning something else. He was planning to kill more than just himself. But he did a lot of damage. But praise God, there was only one death, and that was him. He didn't even harm any embryos. So that's good stuff. Bartkus is a self-described pro-mortalist and anti-natalist. And for a glossary description, a pro-mortalist believes death can be good or should happen sooner. An anti-natalist thinks having children is wrong because life causes pain or harm. Why do we need to bring children into this world when the world is so evil? Well, maybe because that's what we're supposed to do. Back to the article. In a manifesto posted to his website with the tagline, F you pro-lifers, he wrote, I think we need a war against pro-lifers. Because, that's the trend, and I'll talk about that here in a second. I just wanted to say, your God definitely doesn't exist, but if he did, I'd choose Satan over your evil God. Did you ever think that maybe the Bible is just slander against Satan, and that Satan just realized that what a effing creep your God is? This guy was just hideous. hideous person. FBI Los Angeles field office confirmed that this was a targeted attack against the IVF facility. Make no mistake, we are treating this, as I said yesterday, as an act of intentional terrorism. President Trump recently signed an executive order to expand access to in vitro fertilization, aiming to reduce treatment costs and remove regulatory barriers. But here's the thing. Here's the takeaway. We are facing a growing evil. There was a time not too long ago when our biggest concern as far as going against the quote-unquote pro-choicers, I think they are pro-abortionists, but going against them was just a matter of intellectual debate. It's like defining what life is, when life begins, when, is it really just a clump of cells, or is this a human being? When does the human being become a human being? Of course, for me, it begins at conception. That is when I believe God breathes life into this human being. But that's a debate that we can have, right? With those who maybe they're all the way pro-abortion, maybe they're sort of halfway, we should just cut it off at a certain point. I would say most Americans fall into that realm as far as, I'm pro-life. I believe that you should not be able to have an abortion after 20 weeks. That's a debate, right? But people like this guy, they want to take it beyond debate. They're going to violence. And I would argue, it seems as if, and it feels as if, we are seeing more of this, more militancy in the anti-life group, more militancy in the pro-abortion camp. It feels as if they've gone far beyond just arguing with us. They want to kill us, and we need to stay diligent, because other than, in this particular case, I think some sort of perhaps intervention of some sort prevented what could have been an extraordinarily deadly terrorist attack. All right, let's talk about sanctuary states, such as my home state of California. Here we do tend to, apparently law enforcement is forced to protect illegal aliens. If an ICE detainer comes in, they have sworn to ignore them and to quickly prevent the illegal aliens from being captured and eventually deported. Well, there is a new system, a new program, we'll call it, that is being initiated by the U.S. Attorney out here in Los Angeles that shows promise. I mean, I'll admit I hadn't heard about it until it was reported today by Bill Melugin over at Fox News. They got to see the first instance of this program in play, and I'm actually very hopeful about it. Watch.
In a Fox exclusive, you're watching an incredibly rare interaction as the jail in Los Angeles transfers an illegal alien to ICE custody. The sanctuary jurisdiction forced to hand this Mexican national over thanks to a first-of-its-kind federal operation.
With this operation, we're going to be neutralizing California's sanctuary state policies.
Bill Asaley is the U.S. Attorney in L.A. and the architect of Operation Guardian Angel.
California is the testing ground on this. We are one of the largest sanctuary jurisdictions.
All right, guys, thanks for circling up.
So how does it work? Asaley has created a federal task force made up of ICE, HSI, FBI, DEA, and ATF, all working together out of this office in downtown LA.
How's his criminal history? He's got the domestic violence.
They scan these criminal databases daily to find illegal aliens in local jails who have been previously deported from the United States.
We have a warrant for your arrest.
If they've returned to the U.S., they've committed a federal felony known as illegal reentry. And Asaley's office will immediately seek a criminal arrest warrant against them, which, unlike an ICE detainer, sanctuary jails can't ignore.
We're going to flood the system with warrants for criminal illegal immigrants that are in county jails. They can ignore a detainer, but they cannot ignore a criminal arrest warrant.
The federal task force brought us with them as they went to Twin Towers Jail in downtown LA to take custody of a previously deported alien they found in their database and filed a warrant on. He was facing local charges for robbery, but the sanctuary jail immediately handed him over to ICE, with California's sanctuary policies unable to protect him from the criminal warrant.
They have no choice. They will comply. And if they don't comply, if they interfere in our ability to arrest a federal felon, they can expect to face consequences.
And the task force tells us once they're up and running at full steam, they project they're going to be able to arrest between 40 and 50 aliens from local sanctuary jails here in SoCal every single week. Now, if this is successful here in Los Angeles, the task force says this could be used as a model to neutralize other sanctuary jurisdictions all across the country, guys. We'll send it back to you.
You bet. Bill Melugin live in Los Angeles with that for us. Thank you, Bill.
Well, look, it sounds interesting. It's again, small scale here, 40 or 50 a week. That means that it'll only take us, 73 years to remove, and we're not even talking about all illegal aliens. We're just talking about felons, people who've committed federal felonies by being deported and coming back into the nation. But if they can do it and do it successfully in Los Angeles, maybe it can spread. Maybe this is the test case that can really bring this nationwide. I am very hopeful for that, because we are talking about maybe not the most dangerous people, but they're definitely dangerous. Okay, if they're in jail for a reason. If they've already been deported, they were deported for a reason. If they've re-entered the nation, they've re-entered for a reason. So I'm all excited about that. But we'll see what happens if and when the first local law enforcement agency decides to try to buck this particular system. Again, this is not like an ICE detainer. Okay, this carries a lot more weight. We're talking about federal felons. We're talking about aiding and abetting the escape of a federal felon from federal law enforcement. That's a different ballgame altogether than just ignoring an ICE detainer. So we'll see if anybody's going to try to be that beautiful woke leftist who's gonna deny this and see what happens to them. I almost want to see it happen. I don't really want to see it happen. I'd rather we just all get along and focus on solving this problem. But we know that there's going to be people who don't. And we'll see if any of them decide that they too are above the law. Well, it looks like the carnage over at CBS News continues. They, of course, are facing two separate circumstances that both pertain to Trump. Number one, they're being sued for like $20 billion over the 60 Minutes interview, the Kamala Harris 60 Minutes interview that they deceptively edited. They're also in the middle of attempting to merge. They're trying to basically get a buyout, or merge with, not a buyout, to merge with another media company. And in both cases, in that case, they've got to get approval from the Trump administration in order to do it. So they're trying to play their cards right. And part of playing their cards right is engaging in censorship and stifling of their journalists. Now, look, their journalists are idiots, okay? Total idiots. Seriously. 60 Minutes, absolutely worthless. Like, worse than worthless. They actually do harm to the United States of America, in my humble opinion. But with that said, I'm still not in favor of the censorship that they are accused of engaging with. And when I say accused, look, I see no reason why they would have all these people quitting. They've got all these people that are speaking out within the organization. I might disagree with these journalists, but I am a big fan of letting journalists do and say what they want to do. I'm not saying they have to go out there and they can just willy-nilly lie. I rip on journalists all day. But journalist integrity within an organization, that must be maintained. And that means not getting censored for saying what you truly believe. And I have a reason for that stance, but I'll get into that here in a second. Let's get into this story first. It comes to us from Just the News. CBS News CEO to resign amid Trump lawsuit. This is from Natalia Mittelstadt over there at justthenews.com. CBS News CEO Wendy McMahon announced Monday that she will resign over differences with the network's corporate ownership as it faces a lawsuit from President Trump. Paramount Global, CBS News' owner, is being sued by Trump for $20 billion over the TV news network allegedly deceptively edited a 60 Minutes interview with then Vice President Kamala Harris. It was edited. It was deceptive. It was an absolute debacle, to be clear. Okay, I mean, it was a debacle. They interviewed Kamala Harris in the height of the 2024 presidential campaign. She was the Democrat nominee. They took her word salads, they took her idiotic statements, and they did everything they could to edit it all deceptively so that it sounded like the answers to the questions that they were asking weren't quite as stupid as what she actually said in response to those questions. We've seen comparisons between the two. We've seen, here's the question, here's what she actually said, and here's what they played on air. Two different things. Had they played what she actually said, then her disastrous interview would have been even worse. And they knew that. That's why they were rooting for her. And we've seen it work in the opposite direction as well. We've seen deceptive editing by 60 Minutes and many, many, many others doing interviews in the legacy media field who will take conservatives or Republicans and make them sound like idiots, make them look like idiots. They use deceptive editing to try to push an agenda, to try to push a narrative that supports their agenda. That's one of the reasons why I'm so vehemently opposed to most in legacy media. But there's a reason, and again, I'll get to it here in a second. There's a reason why I'm actually siding with them in this particular case. Here's a quote from McMahon. The past few months have been challenging. It's become clear that the company and I do not agree on the path forward. It's time for me to move on and for this organization to move forward with new leadership. I spent the last few months shoring up our businesses and making sure the right leaders are in place, and I have no doubt they will continue to set the standard, yada, yada, yada. Last month, the executive producer for 60 Minutes said he was stepping down from his role because he could no longer objectively oversee the show as it faces backlash over Trump's lawsuit. In other words, they're getting sued, 60 Minutes getting sued. He claimed, the former producer at 60 Minutes claimed that there was censorship involved. But they also, here's the thing that's kind of odd. They said there was censorship involved, but they said they actually hadn't been censored yet. They said that there was basically more oversight. So, I don't know about that. It seemed a little bit weird at the time, but whatever. After McMahon's resignation, CBS News President Tom Sabrowski and CBS Stations President Jennifer Mitchell, who worked directly under the CEO, will report to George Cheeks, a co-CEO of Paramount Global. Amid Trump's lawsuit, Paramount is attempting to complete a multi-billion-dollar merger with entertainment company Skydance that needs to be approved by the Trump administration. So you have two different instances where CBS News and Paramount Media, they're basically against the wall, right? They're getting sued by Trump for $20 billion over the 60 Minutes interview. They also are trying to finalize a huge merger that's going to need approval from the Trump administration. So people will say, oh yeah, it makes sense for them to do that. It makes sense for them to stifle their journalists, censor them, this, that, or the other. Except it shouldn't make sense. Not in the real world of how journalism should be. I'm not talking about, legacy media versus smaller media. I myself have faced similar situations, obviously at a much lower scale, where I was told, hey, yeah, let's get your show here, let's get your show there. And then I say certain things that maybe don't jibe with sponsors, for example. Or maybe they don't paint the whoever in a positive light. And I've had these networks come to me and basically say, hey, look, kind of toe the line or leave. And of course, 100% of the time I've left. It's sort of been standard operating procedure for the JD Rucker Show. But now that I'm over at Patriot TV, things are very different. I have free reign, as do all of the show hosts. There are hosts on here that absolutely adore Trump. There are show hosts on here that absolutely hate Trump. And the fact that there can be on the same network, that should tell you something, right? But as far as I'm concerned, Patriot TV is doing it the right way. Are there going to be times when something that I might say or any of the show hosts might say, might run contrary to a message that's being delivered by one, or at least an intended message delivered by one of our sponsors? You betcha, that could happen. But we're not going to stifle those journalists. And hopefully, if we're doing it right, then all of our sponsors are also properly aligned with us, and vice versa. It's not going to be 100%, but there's not going to be, Monsanto, which I guess was bought by Bayer, but it's not going to be like big pharma companies or big food or big ag or big anybody coming to us and saying, hey, we want to pay you guys a bunch of money and we want to make sure that you never say anything bad about the jabs, for example. That could happen, but it won't happen here. I don't care how much they offer. Seriously. I mean, I don't care if they say they will pay $1 million per episode. There are certain things that must always be maintained. And one of those things is adherence to the truth. That doesn't mean that I'm always going to get everything right. But it means that when I say it's something, it's because I believe that's something, not because I'm getting paid to do it. We're going to select our sponsors based upon appropriate alignment with our values and with the values of an America First attitude. Therefore, you won't see us having to censor or stifle anybody. None of our journalists, none of our guests. I ran into a little bit of heat over the weekend. And it's actually continuing today. Why? Because I had on 2 doctors last week. I had Dr. Mary Talley Bowden and I had on Dr. Robert Malone. Both of them had very different opinions on certain topics. Sometimes they were aligned, other times they weren't. And as a result, I've had Nicole Shanahan reposted one of our videos. It's gone semi-viral. Not like huge, but, a couple million views, right? Well, does that mean that I'm going to censor that or stifle it or whatever? No, absolutely not. Even though, I'm taking some heat for it. Because I believe that during my interviews with both doctors, that I was fair, that I was honest, and that I allowed them to say what they needed to say. That's the attitude that we want here at Patriot TV. I'm not always going to get everything right. Other show hosts aren't always going to get everything right. But I can assure you of this. If we say it, it's because we believe it, not because we're being paid to say something. Unless it's a sponsor. Then we'll say, hey, let's talk about our sponsor, and we're getting paid to say that. Of course, if it's a sponsor, we're trying to find those sponsors that are appropriately aligned, again, with the United States of America anyway. So should never be a conflict of interest if everybody's doing their job right.